Alright, so we're going to go through some basic setup and getting started guide for the physical hardware of the ForceHooks product. This guide is going to cover just a little bit about what's included in the box, like the tools and accessories that will come with the device, setting the device up for the first time, which will vary a little bit depending on the rack you have, the brand and the hole size. I'm going to go through securing the ForceHooks to the rack as well, including how tight to put it and a few little tips and tricks. And lastly, I was going to talk about some classic do's and don'ts and things to keep an eye on when you're doing testing, just to increase the resolution and the accuracy of the data you're getting, and just to minimize any risk of damage to the product. So without further ado, let's get started. So you'll see in the box there's obviously two ForceHook devices. There's two large locking handles, we call them, that secure the ForceHooks from the other side of the rack. There's also a number of different bar inserts. So these will cover a range of different bar sizes from the standard 30mm size. There's also an adjustable 28.5 to 31mm insert. And also finally we have a 50mm insert, which is the standard diameter of the collars of specialty bars, so your trap bars, your hex bars, trap bars, Swiss bars, multi-grip, safety squat sometimes, and fat bars. And so that allows you to rack up and test with those specialty bars as well. And finally we have a few different size spacers. We have 5/8 inch, 20mm and 1 inch spacers, and the spanner, the spacer spanner that goes along with that. So setting your ForceHooks up for the first time, you want to check two things. You want to check that you have the correct size spacers on your device, so the size of the spacer matches the size of the hole of your rack, your particular brand of rack. And the second thing is you want to set up the spacing between the two spacers on the ForceHook device so it matches your rack and secures the device on there and doesn't allow any rotational movement. And so the way we do that, I find the easiest way is to secure it by hand tighten it first, and then after you've double checked it on the rack and you're happy with the spacing, come in with the spacer spanner and give it that last little tighten to really lock it down. And once you've done that once, you should be set indefinitely until you either change your rack or you move to a different location. So on the topic of securing the ForceHooks to the rack, firstly we always want to make sure that they're always securely attached, so we're never leaving them just hanging there without the locking handle behind. So when you use a locking handle, you can spin it on and put it relatively tight, but it doesn't need to be cranked down too tight. As long as it's tight enough to stop any movement, that's usually enough. One little tip when you're attaching ForceHooks to the rack is to give it a little upwards lift before you tighten it down, and that just ensures that there's no slop in the system. When you go to pull on it with a few hundred kilos of force, there's not going to be any looseness in that system there. You're already kind of pre-taking the slack out of the system. When it comes to actually attaching bars onto the ForceHook system for use, the order of operations goes as follows. So firstly, you want to make sure that you have the correct size insert in the device. If you need to change this, you unlock the device, slide the old one out, slide the new one in, and you're ready to go. Then you will attach both ForceHooks at the same height on the racks, and then you lock them in with the handle at the back. After you've locked them in, you can put the bar in to test the height. This is a good opportunity to get the athlete to check the height and see if it's appropriate for the test. Once you've checked that height and you're happy with that, then you can use the latches to lock the bar into the rack. If you're using the 30 or the 50mm attachments and the supports there, this will be a straightforward process. If you're using the adjustable 28 to 31mm insert, this insert features a spring mechanism And so the spring mechanism is designed to actually push the bar with a bit of pre-tension into the top of the hook, thereby making it a little smoother and reducing any slack in the system. However, in order to close the latch, you may need to actually push down on the bar before you close the latch, and then you can let go and the bar will be pushed up. So it may not close just by itself. You may need to push down, close it, then let it go, and that'll kind of lock in by itself. And the same operations for undoing the bar. You push down, flip it open, take the bar out. And finally we get to just a few little do's and don'ts of using the force hooks. One really important consideration is that you need to keep in mind that force hooks are a single axis force measurement device, and so they're really not designed to measure or tolerate any loads that are off that vertical axis. And so you always be best to ensure your athletes are pushing as vertical as possible with the testing. However, as someone who has coached a lot of athletes through mid-thigh pulls, I know it's not always possible to stop athletes from cranking back sometimes. And so given this limitation, I'd always recommend setting athletes up so they are facing out of the rack. And this sets them up in such a way that if they do lean back when they're doing the mid-thigh pull, the lean back is supported by the actual frame of the rack, and so it minimizes that kind of off-axis rotational torque that's applied, and so we still maintain a lot of the vertical force. If your athlete faces the other way, then they lean back, that places a lot of stress and torsion on the force hook device itself, which if you pull hard enough may break the device, or if not, it may just lead to inconsistencies or less accurate data. So we're trying to measure vertical force, so just make sure the athletes are set up in a way where we can accurately assess that vertical force. And the last thing is that please, although they do look like J-hooks, they're nowhere near as durable as J-hooks would be. They're very sensitive pieces of measurement equipment, and so please be careful not to drop them and keep them in a relatively stable environment. Please don't leave them in the sun outside or in a hot car. Just kind of treat them with a bit of respect so that you'll get the best use out of your force hooks. And that's it. We have 2 other videos on our YouTube channel at the moment going through the walkthrough of the software, like the app, and also the web app, and so I'd recommend checking those 2 out before you get started. As always, you can always reach out to me directly, and I hope to hear from you.